Let me take you back to 2010. If you were anything like me, you were likely big into Power Rangers at the turn of the decade. I had just gotten back into Power Rangers in 2008 and began watching the newest season, RPM, in 2009. How unfortunate for me it would be that RPM would be announced as the last new season of Power Rangers, as even major news outlets were covering it at the time.
The 5 superheroes are still selling a lot of toys, but the show has become a thing of the past.
Well, maybe it was the end of new Power Rangers, but wasn't necessarily the end of Power Rangers on television, because in 2010, Disney treated us to a remastered version of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And the results were... So, with a freshly renewed interest in all things Power Rangers and no legitimate source of content to draw from, myself and many other Power Rangers fans decided to see what the Japanese shows were doing at the time. And what was the most recent season at the time? None other than the 33rd Super Sentai season, Samurai Sentai Shinkenger. Fun fact, when I did the first part of my Power Rangers Megaforce retrospective way back in 2023, I asked a few prominent fans and good friends in the community to answer some questions about what it was like being a fan back in the early Nick days, and one of those questions was about how many of those fans watched Shinkenger before they watched Samurai, and here's some of their thoughts.
So I did watch Shinkenger in full, and that is the first Sentai season that I watched in full.
It's hard because I'm a big Samurai Sentai Shinkenger fan. That is like my number one Sentai of all time. So I have a lot of high regards when it comes to Shinkenger, but when it came to Samurai, I want to say Samurai was okay for what it was. It was all right.
It was a clone of Shinkenger, and I liked Shinkenger, so it was okay.
I still like a lot about it. Like, I think, of course, a lot of it comes from Shinkenger. Like, a lot of it's not really its own creation. Like, I love the designs of all the Nylok and everything in the show, and that's not really to Samurai's credit necessarily.
I did. I feel like I enjoyed it for the reasons people enjoy Shinkenger. I just didn't quite know that yet at the time.
Funny enough, Samurai was the very first season of Power Rangers that I auditioned for, and I was so upset that they were going to make Shinkenger into an adaptation, and I knew they weren't going to do it. And I was so mad that I didn't even get a call for it, because I would have been, in my mind, perfect for Takaru. Probably not, because I love Shinkenger way too much.
So yeah, it seems pretty obvious I'm not the only one who had the same experience of watching every new season of Power Rangers, but when the Power Rangers well ran dry, switched over to the Sentai to continue getting my fandom fix. So this video isn't going to be such a review of Shinkenger, more so I just wanted to cover the experience I had watching my second Super Sentai season. I had watched Go-Onger, the season RPM was based on, before Shinkenger, which I had done that at about 15 years ago, so it seemed like the perfect time. It was very easy for us as Power Rangers fans to immediately lock into what Shinkenger was offering. The suits were stunning, the theme song slaps, and the first episode ends with the Red Ranger soloing a group of foot soldiers all on his own. It begins minute 1 in a full hype mode, and when the options are this, and this, it's pretty obvious which one is going to turn more heads. The episode continues with introducing us to these very cool, stylish, and fashionable Rangers. And Ryunosuke. Don't worry, he doesn't dress in kabuki gear for the entire series, and them accepting the roles of being Shinkengers is very much like the Mighty Morphin Rangers accepting the powers from Zordon, or it's even more closely like Andros from Power Rangers in Space giving his powers to the Turbo Rangers. When all of the Shinkengers assemble, they go into battle, and Takaru is always one step ahead of them, pushing them out of the way as he uses his hidden disc to create his weapon, the Rekka Dai Zanto. And what needs to be said, this is one of the craziest weapons to ever be in Super Sentai or Power Rangers. He continues to be a boss, slicing through cars and using his weapon as both a shield and a battering ram before ramming the monster into a wall to finish him. Before the episode is even over, Takaru once again takes the lead on the mecha formation sequence before soloing the monster with his mecha by himself. As an introduction to Super Sentai as a whole, this episode leaves a huge first impression, especially for people who want something bigger and theoretically better than what Power Rangers was offering at the time. Beyond just style, the dynamic of the Shinkenger characters felt more mature in a way than what Power Rangers was offering on its surface. It's ironic given how serious the Calamity in RPM actually was, but there's a lot of things on the surface that convey the idea of maturity in Shinkenger. Given the history of the Shinkengers, the lineage they have, the general concepts of loyalty and protecting their lord, and of course, the fact that the villains are literally creatures from the underworld who use the blood of humans as a resource to attempt to return their master, who regularly gets drunk by the way, to the surface of the human world. The protagonists all had lives before becoming Shinkengers, and so the theme of sacrifice is brought up a lot throughout the season. They all gave up something in order to do this job they were raised to do. Through Takeru's hardened demeanor, they understand that this is a sacrifice not to be taken lightly. In a scene where Takeru is just busy being all cool and a loner, rescuing a little girl, before motivating the team to rejoin the battle and come together. Early on, though, we still get some tension between Shinken Red, Takeru, and Shinken Green, Chaki, as Chaki wants to still enjoy his normal life hanging out with his friends and gaming, but he has to accept the reality of the responsibility he's been given. It treats the role of being a ranger far more seriously than a lot of Power Rangers seasons tend to be, and oftentimes the Power Rangers get their powers by accident. We get to see the Shinkengers' ideologies clash with one another when it comes to how to live the samurai lifestyle, and we also get to see this. They really play up how much of a hard-ass Takeru is early on, telling Chaki that he has to quit the Shinkengers if he can't defeat the monster. The Shinkengers do a lot of training, and regularly push themselves a lot physically. In spite of not doing the traditional hand-to-hand martial arts, the amount of time we see the Shinkengers pushing themselves physically harkens back to the more martial arts nature of Power Rangers, where it's kind of a given that you'll see the civilian Rangers fighting against monsters. Sentai is not averse to that, but Shinkenger incorporating it so much more creates a through line between the two franchises in a very unique way. Nowhere is that more apparent than in Episode 5, the episode where they obtain their first power-up. But in order to use it, Takeru has to put his body through the ringer and endure the pain the disc causes him in order to unlock its full potential. In the next episode, we even get the hint of the series-long mystery, with Takeru being shaken by the monster calling him a liar, leading the audience, and the characters, to wonder what Takeru is lying about. Also, since I'm not going to have anywhere to talk about it here in the rest of the video, I did not appreciate how good of a character Kotaha, Shinken Yellow, was when I was younger, because damn, she's got the Usopp power of being so self-doubting that insults don't even harm her. It's surprisingly nuanced. So nuanced that 14-year-old me wasn't capable of picking up on it at the time because I was a stupid child. Things settle in for a bit until episode 8, where not only do we get to learn a little bit more about Dayu and her motivations, as well as seeing her body the Rangers, but more importantly, we get introduced to Juzo. Juzo is Takeru's rival for the season, and this dude just oozes aura. Rolls in, tanks a finisher from the Rekadai and just leaves. I was shocked years later to find out that his actor, Mitsuru Karahashi, had previously played Kaido in Kamen Rider Faiz, because these two performances are just night and day. Juzo makes his presence known in the episode where Takeru finally beats the crap out of Ryunosuke, where he is hypnotized by that episode's monster. Even if it's mind control, the level of willing to defeat you Takeru exudes in this episode continued to build raw amounts of hype for this character, even when it's revealed he never planned to actually end Ryunosuke's life if it came to it. Shinken Red vs Shinken Blue's battle to the death, while Juzo narrates their every move, is one of those defining moments in the early part of the season when I think about the show. It's such a saucy moment that this is the moment Juzo decides Takeru will be his rival and vows to defeat him in combat for his own personal goals. Let's just gloss over the next episode, where Chiaki whines about not being picked to operate the Kabuto origami when they combine their mecha together, and convinces the only girl to have been assigned a disc to give hers up to him, and instead, let's jump straight into combat in episode 11, before showing the defeat of the 4 Shinkenger of the previous generation, but not before that. Shinken Red managed to put a seal on Dokaku, explaining why he has such a personal grudge against the Shinkengers, and Shinken Red specifically. Since a Shinken Red is the only one who can harness enough energy, which they call Mojikara, to perform a sealing spell, the other Shinkenger decide to double down on throwing their lives away to ensure that Takeru survives all his battles, as his life is the only one that they feel matters in the end. But unfortunately, thanks to the power of friendship, Takeru doesn't accept this and wants them to fight for themselves in the end. But before that, we get some incredibly raw moments like the three-way standoff between dual-wielding Takeru, Juzo, and the monster, Go Pink from Go-Go 5's actress playing this woman whose speech about the kids inspires Takeru to return to the Shiba clan after abandoning it earlier in the second episode of the story, which, speaking of, this episode also has Kanji Tsuda from Kamen Rider Ryuki as the little boy's father, the untransformed sword fight, and I guess the combination of all 3 mecha with Shinkeno is pretty cool too. It feels like the end of a story arc, which makes sense given we are about to be introduced to the brand new member of the Shinkengers. No, the next Shinkenger, Shinken Gold, makes his presence known a few episodes later, in which the TV bumpers describe him as
Hiko Kugai, Meppo Good Boy, Johto Golden Boy.
Shinken Gold Genta. Didn't really get me hyped up as a kid. Maybe I see too much of my own overly eager nature in him, but he was a very different, very goofy Six Ranger. He wasn't as cool as the Go-On Wings from Go-Onger were, but he was very loud, very animated, very much like Gem and Gemma from Power Rangers RPM. Although, no offense Genta fans, but I'm not quite as enamored by his shtick as I am by the twins' personalities. He's also got some Dominic from Jungle Fury in him as well. Point is, he's a weird guy. He makes a solid impression, convincing everyone he's actually a threat, when in reality he's just an incredibly socially awkward, which is, again, relatable to say the least. I will say, I love that his henshin uses the American Nintendo Wii commercial jingle.
We would like to play.
You know, that's another big component in being a fan of Shinkenger around the time, was seeing all the toy reviews on YouTube for all the toys that you could not get in America. Dude, shout out to Ava Unit 41 and Collection DX. I loved watching your videos back in the day. Dude, the amount of times I watched you just sit there and tear apart the Shinkenger mecha. Beautiful. Speaking of the toys, Genta comes equipped with his own new mecha, the Ika Origami. We'll have more significance later in a very special episode, but before that, Genta has to prove why he's worthy to be a samurai. It's a unique format. Most times, the Sixth Ranger is the one who needs the main team to prove why they are good enough to work together with him, but in this case, it's the Sixth Ranger who needs to prove themselves to the main team. It's a refreshing twist, and one not done often, if at all before this point in Super Sentai. I could be wrong. And there's no better challenge for a samurai than a guy whose body can spawn more swords like this episode's monster. I'm not going to talk about the suits much, but the Shinkenger suits are badass and look super sleek and stylish. Although, much like Commodore Geo, not being able to fluently read the language probably helps, because the suits might admittedly look a little more tacky to me if I was just reading the words water and air every time I look at their helmet visors. Shinken Gold's suit is clever in that it's a pretty basic costume and begins a trend of Six Rangers whose suits are very similar to the core teams, and in general, Genta feels like the trendsetter of Six Rangers who feel like they're just part of the core team. Because up until this point, the majority of Six Rangers who would be kind of standoffish or separated from the main cast, but after Shinkenger, Gokaiger would continue the trend, and then so would Kyoryuger, Tokyuger, Ninninger, Juoger, and so on. Genta's suit isn't so flashy as to make him feel like he doesn't belong on the team, and in a way, he's quite literally Ranger number 6, which isn't a bad thing, but after his introduction, he doesn't quite feel as special as he did before. Unfortunately for me, the next episode does not continue the hype I had been feeling throughout the season as we move on to a story focused on Genta and Ryunosuke fighting. I just do not enjoy this. I do not speak for the rest of the Shinkenger fans, but I personally find Ryunosuke incredibly grating in the regular episodes, and Genta is a coin flip of whether or not he's gonna be endearing or annoying to me. So putting these two together is just sometimes unbearable. Besides the fact that this episode makes me seriously regret doing this video now, we learn that Genta was able to create his own Zords by literally hacking his phone, and honestly, the whole Mojikara system reminds me a lot of the morphing grid from Power Rangers. The next episode is remarkably packed with content, as not only does it reintroduce the incredibly charming dynamic of Juzo and Genta being buddies again, and almost feels like Toshiki Inoue ghost wrote their plot lines with the level of Phai's energy it gives off, but Kotoha almost has her Minecraft server deleted when the Gadoshu literally steals her soul. We get a reiteration of the Shinkenger themes of sacrifice by toying with the idea of one of them becoming a Gadoshu like what happened to Juzo in order to save Kotoha's life. But, thankfully, they have the power of toy sales on their side, and Genta could just send the new Ebi Origami to pull the Gadoshu out of the river. The Ebi Origami becomes Daikaio, and man, I don't know, I've always felt this thing is pretty gaudy and out of place with the rest of the origami personally. Oh, also, this episode has something Shinkenger does a lot that I really hate, where they pull a twist and reveal they tricked the monster with a flashback that the audience could not have accurately predicted to make the hero seem smarter. Also, if you watch Mystery Fusion's Dragon Ball GT retrospective, he talked a lot about how in that show they constantly pull out these twists every other episode, and it doesn't feel organic to the story, just as a way to fake out the audience. But after all that, the Shinkengers go home, they celebrate with the return of Kotoha, and they all have a fun party, ending the episode. But wait! I fooled you! the episode isn't over yet. Because... This is where the Shinkenger two-parter of Kamen Rider Decade finally intersects. If you'll remember last year, I did my video on my rewatch of Kamen Rider Decade, and I discussed the Shinkenger two-parter over in that video, so I won't be discussing it here. Ha! You see what I'm doing? Just like Toei did, I'm making you watch another video in order to get the full story. And I mean, it's an effective strategy. As I mentioned before in that video, the Shinkenger two-parter of Decade was the first pair of Kamen Rider episodes I had ever watched. I mean, I had watched a few videos from Easy Rider about Kamen Rider Den-O before all of that, so I was familiar with Den-O's form when Decade used that in this episode, but I was confused by all of the Decade story stuff and all the lore and all the important, actually really deep things that were going on in that episode. That just washed completely over me. I was just waiting for the big team-up fight at the end. Also, Genta could get his Ika-chan back. As for the next actual Shinkenger episode, it's an otherwise unrelated filler episode about Chaki's dad coming to town, but does include a scene of Genta looking for Dien, the other 5 Shinkenger fending off the Nenashi created by the Dien Geroshu, G, their mentor, getting a massage from Natsumi's grandfather because... why not? We get a scene of a Kamen Rider side character in the same frame as a mecha, something that they'd later repeat in future team-up episodes, and we even get a glimpse into one of the Kuroko, that being... you. I just can't escape this guy this year. He just keeps showing up. Oh, and we even get a scene of Narutaki warning Takaru of Decade's destruction of their world. How's the next episode of Shinkenger going to continue this storyline? Well, if you want to actually know what happens between the Shinkengers and Kamen Rider Decade, go watch my Decade video, but much like the show itself, we need to move on. In the next major story arc, the Shinkengers go through a lot of grueling trials in order to unlock the Inomaru, which allows the Shinkengers to become powered up. Although, unlike other team power-ups, this one is only one per team, so the Rangers will have to pick and choose who to give it to each episode, which deliberately ties it back to the sacrifice and training concepts, as each Ranger has to effectively prove why they should be the ones trusted to use it in a given scenario. A lot of really important dramatic moments happen here. Takaru is poisoned. Juzo becomes a traitor for saving Takaru's life. We learn about Juzo and Dayu's tragic backstory that turned them both into Geroshu, as Juzo tells Takaru and Dayu her story in a subplot that finally gives Shinken Pink Mako something to do in the show. The storyline even culminated with Takaru and Juzo having an incredible battle on the cliffs, before Takaru gets the finishing blow. But enough of all that, I'd rather talk about something more fun. Body swapping. Episode 27, Switched Lives. The Shinkengers get into some wacky hijinks as they get their bodies swapped with inanimate objects. Takaru gets the Catboy juice that I want, as he gets his spirit put into the body of a lucky cat statue. Mako becomes a fan. Ryunosuke becomes... And in order to defeat the Geroshu, Chiaki has to trick him into switching bodies with him and destroying his own weak point, releasing all the victims. And not a second too soon, as Genta was turned into a piece of sushi where he quite literally was almost eaten alive by a hungry cat. And surprisingly, this carries into the next episode, as Genta legitimately develops PTSD from the experience, vows to quit the Shinkengers, and creates a new weapon to replace him on the team, Daigoyo. His name translates to Big Order, and from now on, I'm only going to be referring to this boy as Big Order. We also get the Japanese equivalent to this scene.
Once when I was 7 years old, I sat on a banana, and of course, that changed my life.
And we even get introduced to a new villain, Akamaro, who is so powerful, the creatures he summoned can even snatch Shinken-O's weave clean off. Big Order can even turn into his own giant robot form, thereby making him Bigger Order. But with a Big Order becomes a big ego, and the two become a bickering married couple, causing him to run away and try to make it on his own without Genta. It's the whole little dramatic storyline played for comedy to make up just in time for this really cool night fight. The next episode is a standard Rangers pretend to be high schoolers episode, but it does give us a combination between Shinken-No and Big Order, which I dub the combo meal. The episode after introduces the Kyoryo Origami, a power-up that was introduced in the Shinkenger summer movie, which I did not watch on my first viewing of Shinkenger, and I still have not watched to this day, because this is my retrospective, and I am Not interested in watching that movie. The next couple episodes are all a bunch of new Zords, new weapon combinations. One episode has Mako's father show up to bring her back home to Hawaii.
そしたら前の真剣ピンクさんですか？
え？まさか。
Anything cool coming up soon? Oh, sweet. The team-up movie actually takes place during this point. And I have actually watched this movie. Unfortunately for me, Shinken vs. Gohan had to follow up the incredible first Super Sentai movie I'd ever watched, which was Gohanger vs. Geki Ranger, and that movie was so good, I enjoyed it without even knowing anything about the Geki Rangers at that point. Shinken vs. Gohan unfortunately has a problem of just feeling like a bunch of vignettes of different gimmick worlds from Gohanger, and so the characters feel arbitrary. It could really be any Sentai Rangers teaming up in these different worlds. The actual Shinken Red vs. Gohan Red fight is pretty cool, even if it's just a fake out. Anyways, so that's all the movies, and besides the one episode where Chiaki and Ryunosuke get glued together, I don't have a whole lot else to say about this part of the series, so let's just skip to the legendary endgame arc of Shinkenger. The Shinkengers were beaten down by Dokoku, but this drains so much of his energy he has to take a bloodbath. Luckily, while he's gone, the Shinkengers managed to defeat Akumaru after a save from Juzo. Okay, so normally I wouldn't talk about individual Gadoshu, but this one is a legit baddie. Would. Anyways, she seems to have a personal beef with Dayu, and her power seems to specifically target Takeru's unique Mojikara, making her an incredibly dangerous foe. But come on guys, that's not the only female character introduced in this episode you want me to talk about. Dude, this twist is insane. And the best part is they have been setting it up this entire time. As early as episode 6, with the monster calling him a liar, Takeru has been hiding this secret every day, and the reveal of Hime Shinken Red, the first female Red Sentai Ranger, is just icing on the cake. Now, she's not technically the first female Red Ranger. Let's not forget Power Rangers beat them to the punch with SPD's A-Squad Red Ranger, Charlie, but this is still an incredible moment, an iconic moment that stands tall across the entire franchise. And so, not only are we hit with the absolute blindsiding reveal of a new Shinken Red, but this also means that Takeru is out of a job, and struggles with his identity. He also struggles with Juzo, having a terrible sense of timing, as he decides now is a perfect time to begin his final duel with Takeru, which, I shouldn't need to say, is saucy as hell, spanning across 3 entire episodes. The rest of the team struggle to come to terms with their new leader, and many actively defy her usurping the role from Takeru, except Ryunosuke, who still holds on to tradition. But thanks to the power of friendship, the swordfish guy from episode 7 giving him a pep talk, and a well-placed sword swipe, Ryunosuke finally gets some self-respect, and he chooses his friend Takeru over the person put into his place, saving Takeru from the inferno left behind after Juzo's destruction. Have I made it clear yet that this show goes hard on the cinematography? The show is not taking any breaks now. The foot is on the gas. Next, Dayu is finished off, her actually being sacrificed into a part of Dokoku's body to restore his power, which means all that left is the final battle against Dokoku. Kaoru goes to use the sealing symbol that she spent her entire life practicing and hiding, the entire reason that Takeru was a stand-in for her in the first place, and despite us all knowing it can't end this easily, it is still incredibly crushing to see her sealing symbol fail. In a bid of respect to Takeru and the resolve his team has for him, she decides to let Takeru take the lead into battle, and their plan is to hit it till it dies! It is a fantastic final gauntlet. The cities are being flooded, the world is coming to an end, and once again the Shinkengers have one chance to make their move. Kaoru managed to harness her Mojikara into one last diss for Takeru, which thankfully still gives her purpose in the battle even if she isn't physically present in the battle itself. Even that's not enough, as the Shinkengers are thrashed, and sadly our pal Big Order got his metaphorical fries put in the bag, as he's taken out in the final battle. The show couldn't end without one more goated moment, so we get the new final disc. 2 Rekka Daizantos at the same time. You cannot get any cooler than this. It's unconventional, but I like that even Ryunosuke gets the final blow on Dokaku instead of Takaru. You know what, Ryu? You're not so bad after all. Just please, stop talking so much. We go for the third one last shot thing, as they pull the same trick using all of the mecha, and we gradually see all the auxiliary mecha being shaved off, until we are left with the original Shinken-O landing the final strike. And with that, the day is saved. Everyone celebrates, and the Shinkengers return to their original lives, with Takaru finally having a chance to be a real boy for once, ending this story. Whew boy, Shinkenger was a fun watch. It's been legitimately almost 15 years since I've watched most of these episodes. I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. I can totally see why this show brought so many Power Rangers fans over to Super Sentai. Now, it's definitely not perfect, and if I'm talking in my own personal feelings, I don't necessarily put it up there as one of the greatest Super Sentai shows, but hey, if you're looking for something to do this year with no new season of Power Rangers on the horizon, maybe now would be the perfect time to dip in and check out what Super Sentai has been doing all this time. You know, it's actually perfect timing that the newest Super Sentai, number 1 Sentai Go Jujer, is airing during a year where there are no new seasons of Power Rangers, which means, for many people, Go Jujer might be the very first season of Super Sentai that they decide to watch. Given that season is going full hog on the anniversary elements, including having past Rangers showing up to fight the Go Jujers, it's honestly a great time for starved Power Rangers fans to give the Japanese version a shot. Hey there, Editing Dan here. So, a lot has changed in the last couple months since I wrote and recorded this video. First things first, for people who do want to watch American Power Rangers and do not want to switch over to the Japanese Super Sentai, there will be some Disney Plus reboot. It has been on again, off again, talked about for a very long time, but it seems like things are finally moving forward with that project, and we should be expecting to see something within the next year or so. On Tokusatsu side, Kamen Rider Zets is actually getting simulcasts, so this is the first Kamen Rider season that is getting day-and-date releases with the Japanese, which means no fan subs, means you can just watch it straight on YouTube, and that's really good. I think this is a good step to get people into Toku who might not want to wait for Power Rangers and who don't want to go with the hassles of downloading or fan subs or anything. Ultraman's been killing it, doing simulcasting, and they've even been doing live shows in America. I went to one recently, which was really fun, getting to see Man and all of his friends do a little stage show with a lot of promotion for the English audience and the international audience. As for Go Jujer, where I was talking about, I do think that this will still be a good entry point for people, being the newest Super Sentai. I've personally had a lot of my friends reach out to me sharing clips from the Legend Battle, a bunch of different characters fighting. That Tyranno Ranger clip went viral. You know the one. But yes, so there's been a lot of hype about Go Jujer, but also some controversies. Very recent controversy involving one of the actors having to leave the show, and so that has kind of put a little bit of a stain on this series. Not to mention, this is actually going to be the last Super Sentai series for the time being. The franchise is going on ice. We will not be having any more seasons after Go Jujer. It is going to be moving on to a project in Toei known as Project Red, which will be starting off with a reboot of Uchu Keiji Gavan Infinity, which is expected to bring back Super Sentai characters and elements, so the franchise won't necessarily be dead, but it most certainly will not be the ongoing, recurring, every week, every year thing that it's been for the last 50 years now. So, while Go Jujer I do still think will be a good entry point for people to get into the franchise, and I encourage you watch it, give it a shot. It's been a lot of fun in spite of a lot of the problems. I do think that where I was talking about, I think we could put that energy towards Gavin. I think Gavin will hopefully carry forward the torch of Super Sentai's legacy and maybe whatever Power Rangers does with Disney+. I do think we have things to look forward to, even if it's not exactly just Go Jujer. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I am done discussing Shinkenger the show for right now, but don't worry, some way or another, they'll be back on this channel. But hey, if you want more samurais, let me know. Would you guys want me to do a video about Power Rangers Samurai down the line? I'd certainly like to go into more detail about the episodes than I did here, and I can even compare what Power Rangers did differently versus Shinkenger. Let me know down below, and have a great day.
I call on the power of my Super Mega fans. Super Mega, Jim Bevan.